Okay, good morning. Happy June. Got this nice weather with us, nice warm, humid weather, ready for the summer. A couple things as usual. We've got a pretty full agenda. I know I've seen the various slides, so we're going to be here for a little while, but I don't anticipate us being beyond an hour. Reminder on the filming process and on our process. At the end, we will take a quick break, come back for questions. And then when we do have questions, if you would wait till Gene and probably David will bring the microphone to you so that we can get your question recorded as well as any topic or discussion that we have about that. Okay? And with that, I'm going to just turn it over to Gene, and Gene will make some announcements. Gene?
Oh. In my mind, I'm up here, It's just, good morning and welcome all of you. I am actually Amanda's voice today, literally, because she can't talk. So I am physically here to give you her notes and to fill you in on what's going on in communications. The first thing I want to mention, I know we've talked about it quite a bit in the past, but just to recap our community survey that we did in March. We reached out to you, our owners, to let us know your opinion about what we have done in the past, what we are doing now, and what you would like to see happen in your community in the future. And evidently you wanted to tell us because we had 38.5% responds on that survey, which is very high for that kind of survey. So thank you all, because if we don't get your feedback, we don't really know what you're thinking. So thanks for that. We did follow up with a meeting here with our vendor to go over the details of that and hopefully explain anything that you didn't understand as far as the result figures go. We are now sending those results to our boards and committees and so on, where they will work through the parts of the results that relate to them, and we will proceed from there to get more data and also know where and what direction we are going to be going, and we will keep you abreast. If you haven't seen that and you weren't able to attend, that is on our website. The video, it was videoed, so it's on the website as a video, and also the PowerPoint as a PDF so that you can actually print it and really study it. Because I know when we were presenting it, there were lots of figures up there that you couldn't digest as we were going over it. So if you're like me, you need it in front of your face and kind of rake through it slowly. So that would be your opportunity by downloading that PDF. The next thing I'd like to update you on is the digital sign. Again, something that we've talked about over and over and for a long time. And thanks to David and his crew, or under his direction, I think that the physical display is quite nice. You can see that the completed digital sign really does look like the rendering, so we weren't misleading you. And I think it's very handsome. Now, he has turned it over to us to fine-tune the color, the timing, and it's something that when we look at these things on our computer screens, and this is wonderfully updated process, believe me, from what we were doing with making each letter and having the sign department do that. So I'm very, very happy to have this, but I'm just asking you to be patient with us, because what we see on our computer screen is not WYSIWYG. It is not what you see is what you get. So when you look at that sign, the background looks almost, well, very pale gray. On my screen, it's a medium blue. Not close. So we are trying to adjust that so that we can understand how the how the hardware actually reads what we're putting there. The other thing that we do need to work on also is the timing, because we do not want you to be wrecking as you try to read something or tail-ending somebody that's trying to read it. So we're working on that so it's a smooth transition. You really, if you're going the speed limit, have about 8 seconds, because I've tried it. It's hard for me to go the speed limit right there. But, sorry, Dave. But it's very slow. But so you have about 8 seconds. So we have to work with that and make sure that you can at least read one of the messages, and you might have to go in and out several times to catch all of them. But as you know, they're all sent out through our emails, and it's not the only place that you're going to get that information. But we do want to make it easier for you to see and also to read at least one or two of those messages as you drive by. And then the next thing that I wanted to say about the sign is that we have 4 of them. I'm sure you've noticed the one out here as you come in, a small screen. We have a very large screen. How big is it, David? 60-inch screen above the reception desk in the CSA administration building. And then we have the front gate and the Greenwood gate and the Oceanwood gate. We, right now, are running the same program on them, so you're getting the messages, and that's the most important thing. But we have great opportunity to work with the interior signs to dress them up, give you more information, give you different kinds of information. So I would like to see the one at the CSA office have maybe a little video in the corner with some things that are pertinent for guests coming in, that kind of thing. And we can have different things going on there. So we're going to work on that. And then here, I would like to see us be able to put a calendar up there so you can see a month's calendar of events at a time, so you can kind of see when you're here what's coming up, and get that in your head. And then, of course, we'll also include the individual messages. So it's a work in progress. And then the next thing, and it's very exciting, is that we are going to have, I guess I ought to click this, huh? The Greenwood Drive Access Concepts. This has changed so many times, the name of it. Excuse me for stumbling over it. But the Greenwood Drive Access Concepts meeting, and that is tomorrow, and it has required invitations, and it is physically filled. So 2 things about that. We do have a wait list, but anybody that is coming that has decided at this point can't make it, you would physically have to go into your invitation and cancel it, and then it would show that there's some seats open. So if you know now that you're not going to be able to come, we would encourage you to do that so that somebody else would get a message saying that there is now a seat available. The webinar is the other way to attend since we're filled, and you can go to our website under events, and that will take you to a calendar, and you just click on this event on that calendar, and it will take you to the link where you can sign up on the webinar. If you have any questions, please contact me, and I'll be glad to help you through it. But we have, I don't know, Sandra, did you say 100 already? Over 100 on the webinar, so we can take almost unlimited on the webinar. So don't miss out because you can't come here in person. I think it'll be very informative. Artists of Sea Pines, coming up, a reception. It's a little bit different time of month, right? It's on the 20th this month, same time, which is 5 to 7. Just a side note, there is wine and refreshments, so besides all the beautiful paintings. Please come out and support our artists. Every time I come in here, I'm just amazed at the talent that's in the community. So fun time to just come out and enjoy your neighbors and see the talent that's here. Community coffees. We have no community coffee in July, but we do have one in August, so stay tuned for that. And with that, I will turn it over to Russell, the head of the maintenance department.
Thank you, Jean. Good morning, everybody. I can't believe a year has gone by at this point, but I have been here a year and just want to take this opportunity to thank all you and especially my colleagues here with CSA, and a special thanks to Mr. Brett Martin. And it's been an exciting year and a lot going on, a lot of projects. Looking forward to the year ahead and planning out our next big projects, which we'll go through today. Just one comment on the digital sign. This digital sign is really going to free up our sign shop quite a bit. Our crew is out there literally every day or every other day, putting new letters on the old sign. And then also on this sign, you'll see a lot of emergency announcements. If anything comes up, we're in hurricane season now, so we're hoping not to put a hurricane announcement on that sign. But truth be told, that is one of the purposes of that sign, is to put those sorts of announcements out, road closures, things of that nature. So without further ado, we'll talk about some of the projects that we have going on. Lighthouse Road and Plantation Drive, we've received a lot of feedback on the new brick wall. And we still have some more landscaping to do on this. As you can see here on the left side, the previous landscaping, and on the right side our new landscaping we installed over the last couple weeks. And like I said, we have a little bit more to do. We moved the kiosk. One of the things I've had as part of this project, which is kind of interesting, tremendous amount of feedback and interest on what the wall was going to look like, what the purpose of the wall. But most every day I would come into work, and Toby would be calling me like, "Russell, when are you going to finish this?" I'm like trying to figure out, Toby, what's your interest? In the wall? It's you want help us out with landscaping? And Toby was like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to help you plant some new bushes down there." And anyway, he starts asking me for cement. I'm like, "Toby, what do you need cement for?" I'm like, I can't figure this out. What the heck's Toby up to? What's his interest in the wall? Anyway, I go down there and find this. I'm like, Toby, is this your idea of landscaping? I don't know. We got to work with him a little bit on his horticulture. Anyway, but yeah. This is our new annual display that's down at the in front of the brick wall, and this display will change out throughout the season along with the other displays in Sea Pines. We went ahead and installed this in advance of the flower change out that's going on right now. But some of the shrubs that are there will grow in, and this will start to look a little bit more subdued, if you will. We installed some new sod in the area, so again, my opinion, a really big improvement. And so long as Toby doesn't meddle in any more of my landscaping down there, we'll be fine. Greenwood Drive, we're still planning on construction and reconstruction this fall. We're working closely with our engineer. We have another meeting shortly, and as I mentioned previously, if budget allows, we are moving forward with, again, planning on this fall for a start. Just wanted to show everyone some of the issues that we have on Greenwood Drive. You can see here the road pavement is failing, and so is the curbing that's along the road. And one of the issues with every single rainstorm that we have is they're ponding of water, so this rolled curbing is now allowing the water to leave the road, thus deteriorating the roadway much more rapidly. So with our engineer, we're looking at removing a good portion or a lot of this curbing on Greenwood Drive. It'll look a little bit more like Plantation Drive. So right now we're working through those engineering drawings and seeing where we could improve drainage on the roadway. And this would be from Club Course to all the way down to the intersection of Plantation Drive and Greenwood would be, so about 1.5 miles of roadway to the cost of about approximately $2 million is what the project is looking at this point. Railing at Sprunt Pond, we have yet to finish this, but just some before and after photos. And we really hope to do this in the, as part of other projects in the future. The old railing on the left, new railing on the right, and this will have a stainless steel cable horizontally on the railing. So a huge improvement at a very high profile location in Sea Pines. And again, we're looking to repeat this in other areas and really enhance the community. Lot 4, we removed a tremendous amount of trees out of Lot 4, probably somewhere in the order of 200 trees in total. This area was impacted by Hurricane Matthew and also by Irma. Right now we had brought over a whole bunch of soil that we were able to, we had actually within Sea Pines, and we've installed the irrigation, and today we're actually just starting on the landscaping. So we're hoping for a dramatic improvement compared to the way it looks today. Where it looks like kind of a bomb went off over there, but we're looking to buffer the Greenwood Drive from the Lot 4 and the homes that are behind it. Health assessment of our trees, and Amanda sent out a notice the other day. We're working with the Davie Resource Group. They are on site. This is a very, very important exercise for us in an important project. What we're working on is looking at trees throughout Sea Pines, looking at their health. And we've been impacted by numerous storms, and a lot of these trees have been affected. As we know, trees have a lifespan, as we do. Some of these live oaks are probably a couple of 100 years old. And you can see here on this tree on the right side, what's left of this tree, that was impacted during Matthew. So, we really have to look closely, again, at the health of these trees, develop a program moving forward. But there's a lot to do. With 1,200 acres of open space and 60 some odd miles of road, there's a lot of trees to prune. So we want to establish a tree care program. And for this, we'll need funding. So again, this is our first step, is to go through this consultation. And then we're looking towards our 19 and 20 budget to establish a very robust tree care program on our open spaces, beach walks, leisure trails, and roadways. Again, so we hope to have the results of this study late summer, and then we'll take it back to our MEMP committee. Deer Island Bridge, I mentioned this the last time, but Deer Island Bridge is in need of repair. We just most recently received approval to move forward. The project has been funded, so our engineer is working on drawings. We met with the residents down in Deer Island the other day, and we're hoping to start this project this fall once we work through some other logistics with the town and so forth. But again, we're looking to make repairs to this bridge, not replacement at this time. So what that would involve would be new piles underneath the bridge to help support it, and also replacing the road, the decking that's on top. Town of Hilton Head, they recently completed and still have a few last details to wrap up over at Sweet Gum Lane behind Greenwood Forest. They just performed all this channel cleaning. In fact, a lot of this soil that came out of this channel was moved over to Lot 4. We're working closely with the town on our FY 18 and 19 budget, so we're waiting to hear from them exactly what projects we'll be executing in the coming year. But it sounds like moving ahead with a lot of things that they had online in 18, so more to come on that. Gull Point and Audubon Pond Road, again, landscape enhancements. No brick walls down here. Toby, please don't go off track on me on this one. But we're going to be removing the railroad ties and on both locations, and improving the landscaping in the area. Again, this is really a way to enhance the community's old rotted railroad ties, like was at Lighthouse and Plantation Drive. We're looking to remove those and then install some roll curbing and some low landscaping, again, to provide a visual enhancement. Lagoon dredging, we've had a bunch of questions about this, so I wanted to touch briefly on this topic today. But lagoon dredging was part of the hydrology study that was completed by Pittman Engineering, and we have those results. So what we're working on now is we're working on a permit to be able to dredge the lagoons in the coming years. Roughly, with lagoon dredging and bank stabilization, you're looking somewhere about $12 million to do this work over the next a few years or so. We did some recent dredging in Beach Lagoon, photo on the right, but our engineer did make projections on lagoon depths and what would need to be dredged. So we're working through all that and developing a plan of action for the future. Hard to read on here, but these are the results of lagoon analysis. Again, this dredging is really performed for lagoon health, not so much flood mitigation. Now, there might be pipe ends and going into lagoons that need to be excavated and cleared in front. By and large, you can see again, hard to read on some of these maps, but each and every lagoon was assessed for depth and then how much sediment would be removed from each one by priority. Red being the highest priority and purple being the lowest priority. But again, this is part of our hydrology assessment and something that we'll be working towards over the coming years. Again, bank stabilization, a big component of that. Estimated to be about $5 million worth of work around the lagoon banks over the next years ahead. And you can see here on the left-hand photo, this is a result of an unstable bank. And recently, we just actually completed this by Sprunt Pond. So restoring and stabilizing the edge of the bank is an important part of lagoon maintenance and keeping the sediment stable and not washing into the lagoons. Just a few other projects to mention. Sea Pines Drive surveying is in progress. We're about 90% complete with our field work. Next step will be engineering evaluation and drainage analysis of that work. One of the things that we're going to be looking at is the area outside the ocean gate as well for future gate reconfiguration, possibly adding a lane, perhaps. Landscape enhancement, ocean gate in Greenwood. We have some more landscape work that we have planned this season. We have not completed that just yet, but we're looking to dial the gates up a little bit more. Mosquito spraying is ongoing Monday and Thursday evenings right through September. And the flower change-out is in progress. Just be patient with us. Right now, we're actually pulling some of the smaller flower beds out the next couple of days, but the gates, the geraniums at the gates will be pulled the beginning of next week. So it's actually interesting. We've had a few folks show up and the flowers are gone, and all it takes is just one person to load up their trunk, and the next person doesn't get any flowers. So we try and be the best referee we can, but we can't watch the pile of flowers the entire time. So just, again, if they're not there, come back again. So timber bridges at Sea Pines Drive. We're working on that project, working through our permit, and again, hoping to start late summer sometime. So, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. David Henderson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Russell, and good morning, everyone. I'll start with a quick update on some activities that have been going on our beach. If you've been out lately, you may have noticed that the town has recently completed the sand fencing project. My original understanding was that they were going to do the entirety of the ocean front here in Sea Pines, but in actuality, where they stopped was at beach marker number 12. So just a little bit south of Tower Beach is where they stopped. I asked them about this, and the reason why they did that, stopped there, was several. One, that was the previous project footprint when they did dredging or renourishment prior to Hurricane Matthew. That was the southern limits of that project. Also, the purpose of the fencing and the vegetation is to repair damage that was done by the storms. And thankfully, that area and further south down towards Land's End received relatively little damage compared to other areas in sea pines. And then also, once you get down to beach marker, maybe number 7, certainly by number 6, the beach skinnies up really significantly. And the sand fencing has got to be placed obviously above the high tide line and still leave room for people to use the beach when it's high tide. And in that area where it's so skinny, there just physically isn't room. If anyone is in the area that did not get fencing and vegetation and thinks that there is an issue, please let me know, and I'll be happy to communicate with the town. They've been very responsive and receptive to this point. But the fencing has been completed. They've then followed up and has mostly completed planting vegetation. And it's really hard to see on this photo because the vegetation is pretty small, but there are 5 different species of dune-appropriate plantings that have gone in. It is roughly a 20-foot wide swath that they plant, basically about 7 rows, and they start planting in front of or at the sand fencing, and the majority of the planting is kind of in between the sections and behind the sections. And while you can't really see the plants, you can see the divots to see where these plants are. That's what you're looking at. You can see they're roughly in rows. They're waiting for more plants. The contractor ran out. It does not take them long once the plants come in to finish, but there are some areas in sea pines where planting was started and not finished or has not happened at all. I do not have an estimate on when they will be back, but I assume it'll be sooner than later because they need to get the plants in before it gets too hot. It's also a reminder that we do still have a moratorium on the rebuilding of boardwalks. In the majority of our oceanfront areas, it's everything from beach marker 18 out to Canvasback, which is 47. The moratorium is still in place, and we have had several requests to, allow boardwalks to go back, but it is still currently in place because the sand fencing, which has recently gone in, if you've noticed, is working. And so those dune contours, and it doesn't take long, are changing. They will continue to change, but it is our intent to monitor and as soon as feasible to lift the moratorium so that boardwalks can go back, which are intended to protect the dunes. And it may be on an area-by-area basis, but it will be based on conditions in the ground, so stay tuned on that. We talked about this at the last community coffee. It's a really interesting project that I stated I was pretty geeked up about at the time, and I'm going to show you some initial results, and now I'm especially geeked up. It's pretty exciting stuff, but I wanted to start by acknowledging the participants in the study. It's being conducted by Clemson University and the Morris Wildlife Foundation, and these entities here contributed funding to make it possible, and just wanted to acknowledge them for that support. This is a flyer that we can get to you if you would like. It's just a general flyer put out by Clemson about the study. The photo on the left is one of our study animals. That is Lake Joe in the Forest Preserve. That's one of the finger piers at Fish Island in the background. And if you look closely, you can see the transmitter. This particular animal was the largest one that we caught. We have a total of 6 study animals, 4 males and 2 females. This particular male at the time of capture was 11 feet 6 inches long and made the front page of the packet. If you saw that about a month ago, that was the fella. And we're going to be able to see in the last 6 weeks or so where he's been going. This slide here is of the 2 alligators that were captured on or adjacent to the Harbortown Golf Course. And it is a little tough to distinguish the colors, but there is a light green, kind of clustered here and in here, and then there's more of a mustard yellow. The light green color is a female. She was the smallest animal in our study at 7 feet 5 inches long, and she was captured in the lagoon that's around kind of between 3 and 7 or off of 3 of Harbortown. She was captured in this lagoon here. And the reason why they decided to do 4 males and 2 females is that females typically don't range very far. And the initial results for our alligators are showing that. You can see that there are a cluster. It's beginning to be breeding season and nesting season. There are some interesting trips that she took. This is a quick trip over here and out here, and out here. And so it would appear that she's doing these little short exploratory, whether it's the nest selection or something else going on. And then if you look at the male, this particular male was 10 feet 10 inches, so a good size male. And he was caught adjacent to number 11, I believe. He was captured right here. But you can see his using these waterways. You can see his travelings around, and if you're over in Greenwood Forest area, that's your lagoon there. I think that's Wisteria, so that lagoon there. You can see those locations. The transmitter collects a location every 3 hours, and then when it gets a good satellite signal, we'll upload it to the satellite, and the satellite then downloads it to Clemson, and then the professor at Clemson, when she has the time, will send us these locations. We are still working out the details of how we will make it publicly accessible, but it is our intent to, as we get updated locations, to make it available to y'all so you can see what's going on. This gator was about a 9-foot male. He was captured at the end of South Live Oak Road. So he was captured right there. And so what you're seeing, this Plantation Club, of course you have Fraser Circle, Hilton Head Prep. And so again, focused in these waterways. But this is only, keep in mind, about 6 weeks worth of data, so it's going to change over time. But you can see that this particular gator roams from almost near Fraser Circle to prep school. These are the 2 alligators that were captured in the forest preserve. That 11'6" male that I showed you the picture of earlier, he's the blue dots. And so this isn't a live link, but when you're able to look at a live link, you can zoom in and you can see the days and the times that location was generated. What you immediately see, that's a little bit hard to see here, is that they do obviously spend the majority of their time in the water, but the majority of the time that they're in the water, they're along the edges. And because I'm familiar with the terrain, I know that this alligator went in this direction, and I could look at the days and times that the collections were generated. And I know that when you see something like that, and I've seen it on some of these other gators, there is no waterway there. It's walking. So if there's some place that they want to go, they will do the mammalian thing and get out and walk for a bit and then get back in the water. And that's exactly what this gator did. Most of the time, those are late at night, but not always. The female, shown in orange, again, much smaller cluster so far of locations all the way from Lake Thomas there off of Fish Island to what we call wood duck. You can't really see this one from the roadway. And then the big lake, Lake Mary, and this is the island there. She spends a lot of time out there. I saved the best for last. So we have another alligator. This was a 9-foot 2-inch male captured, I believe it's number 8. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, of the country club course. So it was captured in this lagoon right here. This is the club course drive loop. This is club course drive. So hung out there for a bit and then decided to hit the road. And this location right here, as it's getting out into the marshlands, was on May 3rd. I was on the road last Thursday, and I received an email from Dr. Jakowski with Clemson, who said, hey, here's your first batch of location data. Most of your gators are staying put. However, you do have one that's south of Daufuskie Island, end of email. So I was really curious to find out what was going on, and I hadn't had the benefit of looking at this data yet. I then get well, let me jump ahead a little bit here. So over the next few weeks, this alligator, again, this is where it was in club course, crossed Calbuggy Sound, went to Daufuskie Island, spent a lot of time in Hague Point, went all the way across Daufuskie Island, crossed 2 more rivers, okay, and the last location right here, or the last data that I received in this batch was on May 28th. So it left May 3rd. May 28th, it was positioned there. I then get a phone call from a colleague of mine who is also participating at Kiowa in the same study, and I was out of town. He says, "Hey, David, do you know one of your gators was just captured in Savannah?" No, I didn't. So the alligator was captured, Whitmarsh Island, in a private yard, about right there. So here's River Street, and Talmadge Bridge. This is Savannah. Gator was captured right there. If you take a straight line measurement from where it was captured there to where it started, straight line is 16 miles. Of course, it had a lot of traveling along the way, but straight line as a crow flies 16 miles. So after much discussion and negotiation with Georgia DNR, so now he's in Georgia, no longer South Carolina, we negotiated his release. So he was re-released the next day, June 1st, and I'll be especially interested to see how he responded from that experience after riding around in the back of the trapper's truck for 24 hours, if he comes back or if he keeps going. But this is the kind of stuff that is really interesting to see. Near where he was captured, he was released in the Savannah River. Yeah, so will this migration continue? Is this a temporary thing, a permanent thing? Time will tell. But we'll have much more information when the next batch of data is received. But I thought y'all would find that interesting. I know I did. Tower Beach. So Gene had mentioned earlier with the survey results that it's going to the relative respective committees, and it'll be working its way through. But there are a few things that we have kind of at the staff level been able to say that we heard you. And one of those was related to mobility issues. I think it was 13%, if memory serves, in the survey said that there was someone in their house that stayed with them or visited that had mobility issues. And then we had an open text box where you could specifically list any areas where you had issues. And it was, if you remember the presentation or saw the presentation, the descriptions were all over the place, but there were a few general trends. Beach access came up in general terms a lot with issues where they have mobility challenges. Tower Beach came up specifically a good bit. Also Harbor Town came up a lot as well. But we've heard you, and we're doing what we can for now at Tower Beach. So we have purchased a beach chair, shown here on the left. It's the same model as what the Hilton Head Heroes has at the Sea Pines Beach Club. That's been there 2 or 3 years, so if you've seen it, it's the same model. And we are very close to officially announcing this, but there will be, if you have a desire to use it, it is secured via a lock. It has a combination, and we'll provide the combination. You'll have to sign a hold harmless agreement, essentially. And once we have that on file, it'll be available. We'll reserve it just as we do the pavilions currently at Tower Beach for events, and make that available to you. The other thing that we're also working on at Tower Beach is, if you're familiar with it, where the boardwalk ends, which is about right there. Now, after post-renourishment, you still have a long way of high and dry to traverse to get down to the wet beach. We are in the process of trying to get a permit to allow us to put down a type of beach matting. It's not a boardwalk, but a type of beach matting that would facilitate using that chair or any other chair and get you over what can be loose and dry sand. The permitting prospects of getting a permit is uncertain. It is a major permit. There's a lot involved, and they may tell us no, but we are doing what we can to see if we can facilitate that, because it will make accessing the beach at Tower Beach much easier. I'll end with our Explore Your Forest Preserve series. I mentioned this briefly, I believe, at the last meeting. We have our first one. It is a week from tomorrow. It is on Eventbrite, but currently it's by invitation only, but I am inviting you, so that if you would like to go on this, please let me or Gene know, and we'll do what we need to do to get you signed up. Since August of last year, at almost every coffee, I've been presenting on the Forest Preserve and the recovery efforts in there. Had a series of before and after photos. There's an example here. And this will be an opportunity, should you like to take it, to take a walk with me in the woods. And because it is a walking tour, we are limiting it to 30 people. Anything larger than that is just not manageable. But it is a week from tomorrow, which is Thursday, June 14th, 3:30 to 5 p.m. We'll start and end at Fish Island, but if you're considering this, just want you to know that it'll be about a 1.5 mile walk. There will be light refreshments provided at the conclusion of the event, And again, it's limited to the first 30, so there's not a lot of space. We'd love to have you. Let me or Gene know if you're interested, and we will go through some of the areas that I've been showing you pictures of over the last some months and talk about the process that we've gone through and that we will go through as it relates to cleanup of the forest preserve. All right, thanks for your attention.
Good morning. I'm sure you probably noticed the upbeat of the staff. I'm sure that has absolutely nothing to do that Amanda can't talk. I know she's watching, so I know a little got to jab her a little bit, but we hope she feels much better. Just a couple quick updates. Hiring over the last couple of weeks has gone very well in the security department. We're still in need of one officer. It's a third shift gate position that we're trying to hire. All the patrol positions have been filled, so we're working towards completing that training. Over the last couple of months, my comments have been really good compared to anything major occurring inside the plantation. And unfortunately, times have changed. Last Saturday, we made an arrest on an individual breaking into cars. We had a guest call that saw that individual pulling on door handles. So if you were down on Greenwood Drive and saw security in Beaufort County with guns drawn, that's what that was. That subject was arrested and since been charged with breaking into motor vehicles. So with that, please make sure that if you see something, say something, and I'm going to speak a little bit about that in just a minute. Keep your cars locked, because all the individuals doing was pulling on door handles. I got a report from the sheriff's office this morning. They're working car break-ins at Caligny Beach right now. So the activity's back. It's been quite some time since we've been hit. We've had a couple here over the last month. So please make sure that you're keeping your homes and your vehicles secure. The other issues that we have dealt with, you still cannot skinny dip in sea pines. We had someone at Carolina Place, and I believe the gate staff was the last people to see him walking out of sea pines wearing nothing. So please keep that, keep some clothes on. Credit card fraud, this really applies to Sea Pines Resort. I mean, we've had some people using fraudulent credit cards. So that really is not really a property owner issue unless you're in the business, but we have ran several of those as well. We're busy. Calls for service, last month we did roughly 2,600 calls for service last month. So the trend is picking up. We have a lot of people here visiting right now. And the calls obviously are coming in a lot more. Something that you're going to be seeing here in the very near future, we have purchased a Kawasaki side-by-side. It is dark green in color. It has a blue bubblegum blue light on the top of it. It is for beach access. Our calls for service on the beach are picking up more and more. And driving our current vehicles out onto the beach just is not working, and two, it's not safe, and you really just destroy the life of the vehicle riding it on the beach. So you'll see us. I'm in the process in my garage right now. I'm mounting equipment on it. We're putting some stickers on it. So it's not going to be a full-time position on the beach. It's going to be as needed until we can get the staff hired to be able to put them on the beach, but you will see them from Canvasback to Partial One, so it's roughly 3 miles. It's a long stretch of beach out there, so you will see the staff out there. I've been asked, we are not sticking our nose in solo cups, so we're not the alcohol enforcement police. We're there dealing with the fireworks, the games, the drone activity. You cannot fly a drone on any beach in Hilton Head. We're having issues with that. And mainly we've had a lot of wildlife calls here. We've had some sea turtles that have washed up that were dead. We removed those. We've removed several alligators playing in the surf, brought them back into the forest preserve. So you will see the staff out there, so I just wanted to make you aware of that. And I was out Sunday on the beach, and I know that there's a lot of visitors here right now, but I was really taken back at the amount of trash that people leave on the beach. That is something also that we are going to enforce. It's just the amount of debris, and it's turtle season. And if you saw a photograph of a sea turtle with a plastic, something strapped around its neck, I mean, it's amazing the amount of trash. But please, if you have a rental home, stick a note up to cover the holes up as well. That is something else that we'll monitor as well when we're on the beach. Tower Beach, yes, and I would like to say we have a big group of Sea Pines property owners that assist with this turtle. I mean, it's nesting season right now. I know that they're working with the sand fencing, the chairs, stuff out on the beach because the turtles are coming up and they're out there every morning. So it's an important part. And so the nests, people disturbing nests, I mean, we have people from all over the place and they don't get it and they don't read anything either. Going to Tower Beach, I say this all the time. If you see something, say something. I'm asking you, if you see something, not to say something to the person that you think is in violation. We were at Tower Beach last week, and we had a property owner. We appreciate the information, but we have property owners that like to police the beach and confronted someone that was there that had a blue pass in the car. Well, as it turns out, it was a property owner who lives here, who owns a home, who does not have a vehicle here, that calls a pass in for themselves and has a right to be at the beach. So they were offended when the owner told them to go pack sand. So if you see something, that's what we're employed for. Let us go run that call for you, because they end up getting into an argument over something that should have never occurred. The person had a right to be there. We have written property owners tickets. We mess it up. So please, you let us deal with that. We appreciate the information, but I don't need you knocking on the window of a car asking someone who they are. With that, as a property owner, you have no right to confront a security officer and ask them what their job is and what they're doing. If you have a concern of something that is happening with the security staff, please call me. We had a report where an officer went to a homeowner's home to respond to an incident. And the neighbor came over and asked the officers what they were doing. It's none of your business. If it's something that we need you to know that involves their surrounding neighbors, we're going to let you know. But if we're working a domestic next door, we don't come and tell you what's happening at your neighbor's house. That's not the way this works. If you want a copy of the report, I'll be more than glad to give you a copy of the report after you file a Freedom of Information and you pay for the report. Because that's the same thing that's a requirement for everyone else that wants copies of reports. Here, Beaufort County Sheriff, Bluffton, the State Highway Patrol, that's the way it works. So if it involves you, we're going to tell you. During the incident on Saturday, when we had the person that we were arresting for breaking into cars, a Nixle report went out of what that activity was. Because at one point, we had a house in Sea Pines surrounded because we thought there was another party involved that had broken into a home. So we put that information out. But you can't confront staff and ask them, why did you stop this car, or what are you doing with this person? Because it's not the way the system works. So if you see something out there at Tower Beach, please let us know. We do have staff there 7 days a week from 8 to 4, and we're working on adding the additional summer staff to run later hours, but we're trying to cover the busy hours, and I think the majority of it we would cover between 8 and 4. Going to the wildlife call, all the babies are being born right now. This past week, we've had 3 baby deer on the back decks of homes. If you have a baby deer, they're all being born right now. Don't mess with it. Normally, the mom, and David can confirm this, normally the mom will leave the baby there, and they will stay there until the mom comes back. But turns out she left them on the back decks of homes. So don't mess with them. Chances are the mom will come back. If you see that, call us. We will monitor that. And in the event that if mom was to happen to get hit by a car or whatever the case may be, the wildlife, we'll take care of the baby. And we have, if years in past, at the petting zoo here in Sea Pines, that was one that we found on the back deck that the mom never returned for. That was at the petting zoo here. So, but we will handle that. With the wildlife stuff, we are running a bunch of calls right now for the animals. To date, we've removed 78 raccoons. The armadillos, they're very hard to catch. We've only been successful in 4 attempts. And 20 possums. So if you have animals, if you're having an issue, it is a free service to you. The snakes, we've had 2 bites, 2 copperhead bites last month. One was a young boy that spent some time in the hospital. They're very nasty, so if you have pine straw stuff in your bedding, before you start digging around, you may want to take a shovel and move stuff around, because that is a very good home for a copperhead. A lot of snakes we're getting calls on right now, so please be careful with that. The dogs, it's still the state law. If you have an animal, it is required to stay on your property. You can take your dog off leash and it can run around your yard until it's blue in the face. It cannot leave your property without being on a leash. That leads into my next. We are attempting to cull some of the coyotes in Sea Pines. I wish I would have been active. I would have given Amanda. We have a picture of a coyote in the forest preserve with a dead deer in its mouth. Small baby deer. They're out there, they're chasing dogs, so even if you allow your animal to run on your own property, you need to be mindful about the coyotes. We've received numerous reports, north and south Calabogie. Apparently we must have a nest somewhere out there in that area, because we're having sightings just about every day. So you'll see some signage up that says wildlife management in progress. Do not don't go into the forest preserve and take your dog off lead and let it run around, because we are in the process of trying to cull some of the coyotes. We went through the state with this. We've trained our wildlife staff into this, so please don't let your dog run off lead. And I guess I'll wrap up with the final. Our guests are back. Are they back? The bikes, please be mindful of the bikes. I was at South Beach yesterday, and I was telling Michael Tucker, 65 bikes crossed the road in front of me. I was like, when is this going to end? I may as well just turn my car off, you know. A lot of people on bikes, so please be very careful. And with the bikes, it is not your responsibility to tell a parent that their kid should wear a helmet. So be prepared. Be prepared for what the parent may tell you. That is really a parent's decision whether or not their kid wears a helmet. There is no requirement. There's no state law that says you have to wear a bicycle helmet. We suggest it, yes, absolutely. But that is a parent's decision of whether or not they put a helmet on a kid. And I know that Frank and his staff, they were giving free helmets out where we encourage the bike shops. And the bike shops do offer the helmets. It's strictly up to the rider of whether or not they're going to wear the helmet. And lastly, the Sea Pines Beach Club. I know that we've had a lot of challenges with the parking. I am not the parking attendant, nor is the security. So if you go to the beach club and they do not have a parking spot for you, I cannot create you one. The security department has received a bunch of telephone calls of upset property owners that cannot park at the beach club. I have no place for you to park. So if it's first come, first serve, you can, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's just, we're rough. Right now, I think we're 1,820 short-term rental units. 1,820. Not everybody gets to go to the beach club. That doesn't even count the 5,900 property owner homes. That's 1,800 short-term rental units. So it's limited space. You can call us, but there's not anything I can do to find you a parking space at the beach club. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thanks, Toby. I believe we have an announcement. Michael Tucker would like to make an announcement. Michael, would you come up? Thanks.
Thanks, Brett. I happen to be one of those individuals that was playing golf last Saturday, and glad to see Carrie here. When we went through 13 of Atlantic Dunes and saw an officer with a pulled gun, we thought Carrie was a little drastic in trying to speed up play. So It worked, Carrie. We left that scene very quickly. The other thing I'd like to say before I read this statement is that it's been enjoyable to watch our staff in the interaction they're having, the banter that our staff is throwing back and forth. When you come to the podium anymore, you have to be thick-skinned, not just from the audience, but from our staff that is quick to remind you of things that you shouldn't or shouldn't have said. I like the banter. Basically, what I want to address is there are a lot of issues with regards to our attempt to raise the gate fee. This has been around for quite some time. We're seriously about trying to get this done. Mark Griffith has asked me to read a statement so that we can keep you abreast of where we are on this particular issue. In order to make any changes to the Sea Pines gate fee, we must have signatures from CSA, the Sea Pines Resort, and the ownership of the Sea Pines Center. All three signatures are required. In the fall of 2016, a task force of the CSA Gate Entry Committee was created to discuss a possible fee that would be effective April 2017. After numerous discussions between the entities needed to approve any change, no agreement was reached. In May of 2017, representatives of the CSA Executive Committee initiated meetings with the appropriate entities in an effort to increase the daily gate fee. Although all parties remained committed to a positive outcome through the summer and the fall months of last year, each party and their counsel raised issues needing to be addressed before any final agreement could be completed. Just as we reached the point where we had an agreement between the resort, Sea Pines Center, and those members of the executive committee, we became aware of a possible challenge from a commercial member. We have very recently received an assertion of approval rights by the challenging commercial interest. Those rights, the rights being asserted, are under review by counsel, and we have been advised by counsel not to comment any further on this matter until we can resolve this legal question. So I say that to you now before we get to the Q&A session, that we're just not able to discuss this at this time until the legal issues are resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Just a quick note before we take a 5-minute break. I'd like to congratulate Russell for a year of service. It's been a pleasure to work with Russell. I know he's been it's a challenging role, and a lot of information comes at you pretty fast, and I think he's done a terrific job for us, as well as the rest of our team. I feel better and better every day about how well we are performing and trying to respond to your needs and requests for service, and the professionalism that the staff exhibits day to day. So thank you all. With that, I'd like to take about a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back for a Q&A. Thank you. So, we're opening it up. Questions?
Thank you. I've got one is a question and one is a request. The question is, Toby said there were 1,820 rental units, and that's out of a total of how many residential units, roughly?
We're about 5,900, just under that.
Thank you. And the request is on the sign, which is terrific, but the 8 seconds might be good for people with excellent eyesight, but when I come through the gate on the left-hand side, and I live in Club Course, it takes me a few seconds to get close enough to read the font, and during that time I'm also looking to the right to try to figure out how to merge into the traffic that's coming in from the right side. So I barely get a second or two to really see what's on the sign. So if you could keep the font really large as you can, I've had a much better shot at reading the content. Thank you.
I think, absolutely. The other, we've gotten a lot of comments, as you might imagine, on the signs, and, Jean and Amanda, as she mentioned, are working with the colors and what they see versus what's out there. I know we also have nighttime issues on the brightness of the background, those kinds of things. So, we'll be adjusting this and our processes as we go, and I think that's, Tom, a great point for us to incorporate into our plans. So.
We will work it, and please give us your feedback, because you're the ones that have to get that message. I can't help with the merge thing, though.
I just had a quick question about the signs, and you may have said this in earlier meetings, I don't remember. But when there's a major power outage, will the signs be operable?
No, they will not, but we kept the old signs.
Okay, so you'll put something out there
We could put those back out there, as I think Russell mentioned. Our challenge with the old signs was really just the time it took to create the
Right.
sign, because we
I
literally
understand
had to
that.
cut each of them out and post them. So this is a much more efficient method
Oh,
for us,
yeah.
but we've kept the old signs.
Okay.
Other questions?
I have a situation in my neighborhood which I would like to bring up to the community. My name is Vera Gray, and I live on Stony Creek Road, and a very large 5-bedroom house was built recently that does not fit into our neighborhood. It is intrusive and inappropriate, not in keeping with the size and architecture and integrity of the surrounding homes. All of my neighbors and I are very concerned that another massive house will be built on Stony Creek, and are expressing our concern on how to get engaged to keep this from happening again. We have 5 empty lots, with one to be built on in the very immediate future. How can we address this issue? In addition, I am suggesting when you leave today to drive down Stony Creek, a dead-end street on the right just before Harbortown. Probably you've never been down it because it is a dead-end street, to view the house that was just built, and you will understand our situation more fully. I think this is an issue that is going on in the whole community. So we would like to address this and figure out how we can engage in keeping this from happening again. Here in Sea Pines, owners rely on the ARB to maintain the standard of our neighborhoods, and we are seriously concerned that this is no longer the main mission of the ARB.
Understood. And actually, I think I've gotten an email with signatures on a petition, and that has been passed on to the ARB. I have not received a response from them on any items or there any type of a reach out at this point, but I'll certainly follow up with them on what they may be able to do, or what they are willing to do.
Okay, I would love to have you drive down Stony Creek and see this house, because it is extremely intrusive. It's unusually intrusive, so.
Understood.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Let's get back to Marty.
Thanks, David. On that same idea, neighborhood standards, that tree health survey that's going on, that doesn't apply to any private property, I assume.
The only areas that I think we may be infringing on private property are along roadways where we have a right-of-way. So if there's a road right-of-way and there's a roadway there and we have an overhanging tree that may be on your property but is within the right-of-way, we are going to be looking at that. There may be other encroachment areas that we may review. Russell, do you want to give any additional information on that?
Excellent question on that. We have a list of all those roadways that Brett's mentioning, and working closely with our consultant. We're going down every single road in Sea Pines that CSA owns. And so the right-of-way lists vary widely on some of these areas. So again, if the tree is overhanging the road, we're more than likely looking at it. Now, these are sample, the way this inventory is working, as these are sample plots across sea pines. There's 5,000 acres here, so there's no way that we could inventory every single tree. So the sample inventory that we're conducting, again, will give us an idea, to determine a budget in the future, what the needs are for tree care, give us an idea of how healthy the trees are, other considerations that we need to make for the future. We'll be going down the leisure trails, beach walks, look at all the open space areas, for instance, Baynard Ruins, things of that nature. But again, more than likely, we'll be up against private property in many areas looking at these trees. So.
That being said, again, going back to neighborhood standards, tree health was one of the things I was trying to get at. And Russell, I've spoken to you and David a bit about the property that is bordered by Spartina Court, Calabogie Cay, and Plantation. There's a huge swath in there that, starting with Matthew, there were trees down. Irma with the impact, the storm surge impact. Now a bunch of trees. It's an open area in there. In fact, there's a pond in there that I didn't know was there before Matthew. But right now, trees have been all cut down, and the stumps are still there. It looks like a tree cemetery in there. So it's impacting the neighborhood. I understand it's private property, but is there any way we can find out what's going on there and the time frame when they plan on finishing this project?
I know the property owner is working towards remediation on that site. My understanding is the goal is to install a pond in that location where the tree and tree stumps currently are.
That can be decided unilaterally? I understand it's private property.
Yeah,
But
I mean, the
ARB
property owner would still have to go through the process of applying for permits with OCRM and so forth. I know there was, I don't think, if I stand correct, ARB possibly looked at his plans.
I believe all the plans have been submitted, and the owner has requested that CSA either approve or confirm that we have no opposition. We have confirmed that we have no opposition to the plan. It's on his property. We don't have any rights to infringe on his plan. But he does have pretty elaborate plans. He's just in the start of that, and he's trying to accumulate the permits for what he wishes to do. I believe at the last board meeting, we actually had the display of his plan, and we have that at the office for anybody that's interested to take a look at it. But it's pretty comprehensive, and I think you'll see all those stumps pulled out and taken care of.
I live on Spartina Court, and I was just wondering, will there be any discourse with the neighborhood, with adjoining neighbors of what's actually going on? Actually, he has temporary access that he doesn't have legal access to Spartina Court, but the work that's been going on, he's made a couple of temporary roadways onto Spartina Court. And I haven't heard of any discourse.
Any required discourse is certainly going to have to happen. So I'm not sure whether when he goes to the OCRM permitting process, if there's a method for OCRM to step in, but because he's putting a body of water in there, and we understand he is going to connect that body of water to the stormwater system. So that will require some permitting, and that will have to be done through OCRM and their regulations. CSA specifically doesn't have a requirement for notification of neighbors on improvements on your property. The ARB has some of those, but I don't believe that they felt they had a obligation or a right to make those plans available to others. He's pretty actually open. So I know that I think he's met with Spartina Court, correct? Okay. I know that there was some discourse between Russell and I and the Calabogie Club president
yes.
About what was going on there, and I thought we introduced them to each other, but I'm not sure where that went, Marty.
Thank you.
Is there any explanation of the legal delay process on the gate fee? I don't understand what that mechanism is, number one. Number two, with low expectations, is there any time frame for resolution anticipated?
I currently don't have any time frame for resolution. I think the statement that Michael made, we can't really get into a lot of detail about it, but we have to go through the process of understanding what that challenge is. And as Michael said, we have agreement between the parties we believe have the right of approval over that, subject to CSA board approval and the finality. But with this challenge, we've been advised by council, we have to, look at the challenge and make sure that we are in the right position. And I do not have a time frame on that.
What is a challenge, the challenge, or do you even know?
I can't comment on the specifics.
Okay.
I've been led to believe that the contractors, et cetera, who work for the resort do not have to pay a gate fee. Is that correct?
Yes, generally speaking, some of them have, however.
Why is that so? I mean,
It's a right of entry that the resort holds.
that doesn't sound fair. Can we look at that and evaluate that?
We have, and it is a right that the resort holds. Other questions? Christopher?
At the town council meeting last night, there was a brief discussion, preliminary discussion about the fiscal year 2019 budget. The town manager made it quite plain that unless your item was approved and currently in the draft budget, it probably has no chance of getting into the budget for fiscal year 2019. They're absolutely strapped, and he wanted to make that clear. So I just thought I'd pass that on. But more importantly, last night, and of course it might affect any plans you have for the reconfiguration of the entrance to the gate at Greenwood. But question for you, Brett. Actually, last night, Gary James, the county assessor, in his own words, presented a dog and pony show about the reassessment for this year. And he offered to actually...
I think it's working.
Okay. He offered to actually make that presentation and take questions at any POA.
Yes.
So I don't know, he's passed it on to you, but I just thought it may be something that property owners would be very interested in.
Yes, it has been passed on to us, and we are interested. We will, to work with his schedule to get that scheduled here in Sea Pines.
Oh, great. It took about 20 minutes, but it was extremely informative, and I'm sure people would find it very interesting.
Great. Dave? Linda?
I have a question that I think will be of, I'm sure, I don't know if you can answer it, but of general interest to everyone in the room. My husband's Rotary meeting had Mr. Riley as their speaker yesterday, and Mr. Riley informed us that the mess at Office Park, New Orleans, and Pope will not be finished prior to the 4th of July. And I'm wondering if you know about that and what kinds of plans you have to avoid another Easter blockade.
David, do you want to speak to any? You need a microphone, though, because I know you've been.
No.
That was for Office Park at Pope
And New Orleans. He said it will
and
not-
New Orleans.
And New Orleans.
Okay.
The whole thing will not be completed until, and that was part of our problem during the Easter blockade, if you remember.
I do. I've heard they have had some challenges. I did not hear that it would go that long.
Announced yesterday.
The other end of the project area, which has been directly impacting us, is there at Office Park at Greenwood. And thankfully, that's a much smaller project and is almost done. There is some pavement markings that will have to be done, some landscaping. But on that end, that should be, that's right. So I understand. I can certainly talk with the town to see what's going on there. I just know they've had a series of challenges, mostly related to infrastructure and conflicts that they've had to address as they've come up. Yeah.
We do get frequent updates from the town engineer. Yeah. Yeah, actually, I think we'll probably contact the town engineer who's managing the project to make sure. Jennifer Lyle is her name, yes. She's really the construction person for major projects. But she communicates with us. I haven't seen this communication specifically. Yeah, usually when these things get out in the public, adjustments are made, but we want to make sure they're good adjustments.
I have a question because I think it was Toby alluded to the number of bikes. In 25, 30 years ago when we started visiting, it was very clear that vehicles had the right of way. And with the growth of people coming and going, I noticed, it's a far greater number than it ever was. But I see places where this car stops, but this lane keeps going. And have we looked at trying to standardize and publish and make sure we're getting whatever the policy is to everybody? Because it kind of scares me, especially with grandkids who do that. When one side's stopping, the other's not. That's something, I don't know if we can educate people, come up with a standard policy, but I was hoping that we could.
That's a great question. It's difficult. We have so many people from so many different areas, and depending on what state they're from, if they're driving down Greenwood and there's someone stopped waiting to cross the road, they stop and let them across. In most instances, that's not the problem. It's what you mentioned, someone coming from the opposite direction, a property owner who, they're not in the crosswalk, I'm continuing on because I have the right of way. That it becomes a dangerous situation, more so at the gate. We've tried to work with gate staff, but it's hard this time of the season with a number of cars going out and someone exiting at Greenwood stops in the left lane and now someone's coming across and that right lane is continuing to flow. I'm not sure how we would educate the number of people because every Saturday we got a brand new batch and everyone does something different at the crosswalks.
I notice a lot out around the beach and around the circle, Fraser Circle. There's a lot of that.
The major thoroughfares are the biggest issues because that's where obviously the majority of our vehicles are at. It's a challenge.
There's little signs at a lot of those crosswalks. Mm-hmm. Maybe a little bit bigger sign and a requirement of managers to educate and explain to renters. This is the island policy. I don't know. Maybe
I do know on all the bike paths crossing the road, the bicyclist or the pedestrian, there is a sign that says vehicles have the right of way.
It's small, and if you're not really paying attention, you will ride right past it or walk right past it and not notice it.
Okay, that's something we can take. That's something that we could consider. I've got no problem with that. It's just hard for so many people. Depending on what state you're from, yeah. I can tell you if I'm driving down Greenwood and there's no cars behind me or coming at me, I stop and let them across the road. That's just what I do. But I would not stop if someone is coming from the other direction. So, we will work on that and the sign.
Yeah, I think the sign is a great idea for us. Okay. Other questions?
South Sea Pines Drive at 25 and 26.
You guys want to talk about what's planned for the bridges across Sea Pines Drive?
To answer that question, we will be placing pedestrian crossing signs similar to the signs that are at Greenwood Drive and the Sea Pines intersection. You'll see at that location there's a universal sign with the person crossing the road with a downward facing arrow. Those are the signs that will be at those other 2 locations, including a stamped crossing. The same crosswalks, or the same crosswalk that's at Beach Walk 24, we'll be placing those at 25 and 26 to enhance safety in those areas. So similar signage package will go out there.
What about large stop signs so that coming from the beach or crossing to the beach, the bicyclists will know that they do not have the right of way?
So coming from the beach towards Sea Pines Drive?
Or across the pedestrian bridge from the bike path to the beach path?
They would have the same signage standard that the rest of the leisure trails have. There would be stop signs on either side of Sea Pines Drive.
Okay. I have one other question. What provision has been considered to protect the people on Liberty Place from their street becoming the drop-off parking lot for the people crossing to go to the beach on path 25? I might suggest that you look at that, because even now there is a path beaten down through the shrubbery from Liberty Place to the leisure trail. And I don't think it will take long for people to realize, once those walkways go across, especially 25, not 26, that that will be a direct path for people to park their cars and go. It says no parking.
Take a look at it. It's very important for property owners to remain vigilant. I mean, we can't be everywhere, so if you see something like that, call security, and we will respond and attempt to try to find the operator of the vehicle.
I have one other question. Sorry to take over, but now that I have the microphone, go girl.
That's okay.
How, for the beach area, and perhaps I am misunderstanding, I thought that each rental home was to provide hard surface for their renters for parking. Does this include their front yard, their side yard, or are they to stay on a hard surface?
Yes, Sarah, I think the majority of the rental properties that we have responded to us on the hardscape parking of what we've asked the rental agencies or the homeowner, tell us how many cars will fit on your hardscape. And that's what we're going to put in the new ABDI system moving forward, is a number of passes that we would issue for that rental complex, how many will fit on the hardscape. Now, just to let you know, last month we responded to 81 parking violations, which deals with the hardscape, and 41 already this month. So they're going to park in the front yard, but if in 99.9% of the time, if we get the call and knock on the door, they move the vehicle. But if they refuse to move the vehicle, there's not anything that I can do. I can't tow the vehicle off of someone's front yard or write them a ticket for parking on the grass. And not any homeowner that I have spoken with wants them parking in their front yard either. Because more often than not, the homeowner is not nearby. They have no idea these people showed up with 6 cars and only 3 will fit on the landscape. So we are monitoring that. It's going to be a little easier moving forward with the ABDI system, because if we know that it's a rental property and they request entry passes into Sea Pines, we will know how many vehicles how many passes we would issue. That still doesn't mean that the other parties with them will not pay the $6 and drive to the house.
I understand your predicament. Thank you.
Others? Okay, great. Have a great summer. We'll see you in August.